When a new threat from the mysterious Dimension Z rears its ugly head, Steve Rogers and Sam Wilson will need to unite like never before to stop it. What'll happen next? Well, let's hop into the pages of Captain America Cold War Alpha, issue number 1, and find out together. Shall we? So then, as we join this brand new crossover series, we check back on in with White Wolf. You'll recall at the end of the last Sam Wilson Cap arc, he had been defeated after trying to conquer his birth nation of Mohanda. Now, though, it seems Hunter is being sprung by none other than Bucky Barnes, formerly the Winter Soldier and currently the Revolution of the Outer Circle organization. In classic supervillainous fashion, White Wolf opines on how Winter Soldier and him are actually more alike than they're not. They both owe some of the worst days of their lives to faulty flying machines. They're both parts of great legacies that more often than not forget or push them aside whenever it's convenient, and hey, you know, White Wolf, Winter Soldier, both pretty cold, am I right? And also they call Bucky White Wolf in the movies, how about that? Wolf states that he never actually needed Bucky's help and could have escaped whenever he wanted, and the new Revolution reiterates that he positively hates White Wolf with a burning passion, but that he still needs his help. The Revolution is ready to take his next step in the Great Century game, but White Wolf only agrees to help on the condition that Bucky give him that which he's always wanted, a throne to call his own. Now from there we transition back over to New York, where Captain America is actually having breakfast with his long-lost son, Ian Rogers. Steve, like most readers, had assumed that Ian had died after one of Armin Zola's labs exploded, and Ian is only back now because he had a good talk with Sam. Nomad figured with all the terrible stuff going on in his father's life right now, with Bucky turning against him, the death of Roger Aubrey Destroyer, Steve could use all the help he could get. What's really interesting is that Steve still defends Bucky and his choices, saying that he wanted to take the Outer Circle down from the inside out, and the only way to do that was to actually play their sick and twisted Century game. He doesn't agree with any of Bucky's choices, but he feels deep down in his heart of hearts he was still only trying to do what was right, and he hopes that he'll be able to talk him back from the brink sooner rather than later. It's at that moment the diner the two men were eating in comes under attack. A massive explosion tears apart the entire building, and we see the culprit is actually none other than Peggy Carter, aka the Dryad. Peggy, you'll remember if you've been reading these Captain America books, was working as a sleeper agent for Winter Soldier, feeding information to the good guys from inside the Outer Circle. But you'll also remember that Peggy also just so happened to be a Starpoint, one of these special hand-picked super assassins the Outer Circle used to pull off their dirtiest of jobs, and today that dirty job includes kidnapping Ian Rogers and taking him through a waiting portal. Knowing that the shit has 100% hit the fan and gotten realer than real deal Holyfield, Steve Rogers decides now is the time to call in his best friend Sam for help. I actually really love how these two interact with each other. They actually call each other Cap, and it's just very fun. They also do a super manly handshake like something out of Predator, which actually kind of mirrors the handshake that Revolution and White Wolf had at the beginning of this book. Steve and Sharon get Misty and Sam up to speed on everything that's been happening with the Outer Circle, how they're a collective of ultra-wealthy World War I era arms dealers who have secretly been controlling the world from behind the scenes, and who deal with their boredom by playing something called the Century game, wherein they use their vast resources to influence culture, politics, and war from the shadows. Bucky used to be a Starpoint, but then he killed the old Revolution and took his seat at the table. Now, though, with the kidnapping of Ian and the breaking out of White Wolf, Steve is starting to believe that Bucky may finally be too far gone to actually save. Making matters even stranger is the reappearance of radiation from Dimension Z, that artificial world created by Dr. Armin Zola as a home for all of his mad science experiments, including Ian himself, who before he was Ian Rogers was actually Ian Zola. In fact, Dimension Z seems to be exactly why Peggy kidnapped Ian. You'll remember that White Wolf had actually been using conscripted soldiers from Dimension Z in his attack on Mohanda. Well, it seems that Bucky as the Revolution also wants access to Dimension Z, even if it means putting White Wolf on the throne, giving him complete access to the dimension and its warlike denizens thanks to a special genetic codex hidden inside Ian's own blood. Now, the two Captain Americas and their allies ultimately managed to track down the Dimension Z radiation to Alaska, wherein they discover two sides of heavily armored individuals fighting each other. These Steve automatically recognizes as the Tithed Agents, the personal foot soldiers of the Outer Circle and the Shadow Capital. Why are they fighting each other right now? Well, it's all part of the game, don't you know? To people like the Revolution, the Power, and the money, human life is just more expendable pieces on their great game board. And a nice bit of connective tissue too, Sharon Carter actually recognizes many of these tithed agents, as before getting brought into the outer circle, they were actually just regular old Alaskan militiamen. In fact, the whole reason Sharon wasn't in the first arc of the new Captain America series is because she was on a special mission to try and break up these militias, but wouldn't you know it, that mission was also secretly being controlled by the outer circle. Sam Cap and Steve Cap join the fray, and we get a nice little back and forth wherein everyone basically saves everyone else. It's a fun, brisk, action-packed little back and forth there that is only broken up by the appearance of the Frocks, these strange natives of Dimension Z who have come fully ready for war. The twist, though, is they don't actually seem to be on the side of the outer circle right now, they're on the side of Bucky. It seems that his whole plan was to upset the outer circle century game board by flipping it. White Wolf actually questions Bucky's motives and if he's truly as invested in all of this as possible, meaning that success in this mission could very well mean the death of one or both Captain Americas. Bucky, as the Revolution, perhaps taking his first real steps into supervillainy, says that if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. After all, the Century game is the only game that has ever mattered, and that the only way to win is to be willing to sacrifice a few pieces along the way. And it's on that very dire note right there the comic comes to a close, and so that was Captain America Cold War Alpha issue number 1, everybody, and I gotta say, this brand new crossover series is off to a great start. This is a story that feels super rewarding to someone like me who's been reading and really enjoying both of the different Captain America books, but even if you've just been reading the Sam one or the Steve one, I would say you should probably pick this one up anyway, because they do a great job getting you up to speed on what was happening in the book you may or may not have been reading. I'm sure some people will be a little upset with Bucky's further descent to the dark side, but honestly, I'd be lying if I said this wasn't the most interesting material they've given him in a very long time to play with. He thinks that both Sam and Steve aren't doing enough to actually try and save the world, and the only way to do so is to play the dirty game of those who are truly in charge. Also, I think I've gone on record before by saying that I wasn't exactly the biggest fan in the world of the Dimension Z stuff, but I must say using it as a catalyst for this story is actually pretty damn inspired, and shows that Onobuchi, Kelly, Lanzig are real scholars of Captain America lore and aren't afraid to do deep cuts and pull little bits and bites to make their story better and feel more lived in, and I positively love that sort of thing. Overall, I'd give this one a very positive 8.5 out of 10. In fact, I probably would have given it a 9, but my only complaint is that I wish the art was a little better. The action scenes are solid, but the sitting talking scenes, not so much, and there's honestly more talking than fighting. Hey there everyone, Cape Joel again, and I want to thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. As always, if you liked what you see, be sure to like, subscribe, comment. It really helps drive engagement and helps me out too. Also, if you are a patron, which you can become for as little as $1 a month, you will get exclusive content that no one else can ever see, and you'll get to see the Comic Multiverse podcast before anyone else too. You can check out all this and more down in the description. And until next time everyone, this has been Cape Joel, and I'll see you all next time. Cheers.